I think we are ready to go. So I want to welcome all of you. In the next minutes, we will still let people in. I want to welcome all of you to today's masterclass about mindset for co-creating with AI agents. I will tell you in a moment why we say co-creating with AI agents. But first of all, I want to say welcome everybody. So in the next 60 minutes, you are really going to learn super valuable things of myself and Vlad. So a bit about myself. I'm a certified trainer, facilitator, and NLP coach. So I speak a lot about mindset, also in the non-technical context. But today I'm very happy that we can bring those two worlds together. I've been in corporate tech for 10 years. I'm a team lead in sales. I'm an AI expert. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have an app that you can find. I'm also a published author of Success Fundamentals. So this is all about mindset, and I'm a community leader here in Munich. With this, I would say over to Vlad. Vlad, for a quick intro.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vlad. I'm a senior solution architect. I've been building cloud and software solutions for the last 10 years. And more recently, I've refocused on agentic AI and started a couple of projects, founded a couple of companies and started a couple of projects in that field, and mostly with agentic software development that we're going to talk about tonight.
Yes, and Vlad and I, we met here on an event in Munich where I invited him as a speaker, and it was amazing. So we thought, let's do more together. And this is why we are here today. All right, so one thing, I asked you to turn your cameras on, and there is one reason. And this is one of your human powers. It's your ability to focus, your ability to set an intent, your ability to create something. But one thing is required for that, and you may have a guess already. What is required for that? And those who attended previous classes, they know the answer. I give it to you quickly today because we have so much to cover. It's energy. So keep your energy high. You will also notice I'm asking you a lot of questions. The same reason, I want you to be very aware because you're going to learn very interesting things today. So learning requires energy. So no matter if in this class or whether at the end you decide you want to schedule some time every day to learn about vibe coding, context engineering, spec engineering, approach it with a lot of energy. So cameras on, focus, and commitment. So today we are not only going to talk about technical skills. And maybe you can post a 1 into the chat if you did any kind of AI training in the last weeks or months. So please post a 1 into the chat if you did any kind of AI training. So I'm expecting a lot of ones. Yes, a lot of ones. So I think all of us, we are doing some kind of AI practical training. And this is important. This is super crucial to have this skill training. But you see an iceberg. So you're expecting something. There must be something underneath the iceberg. And this is exactly the mindset. So often in life, people focus on the skill training purely, but they don't really think of the mindset. And after this session, I can promise you, you will have a clear understanding. Okay, what does he mean when he means mindset? And also how you can tackle this, how you can actually condition your mindset to become better at the skill training and to become a very good AI full stack engineer, or however you want to frame it. So we need both. We want to approach, or we want to build and shape the mindset so that everything else will go very simply. Will go in a very simple way. And you have a choice. So you can either be on the one side where you proactively enhance your AI skills frequently, or you can be on the other side where you don't really embrace the change. So there is preparing versus not preparing. And those of you here in the meeting, I think you've taken a decision that you want to prepare, and this is what we are doing today. So let's go into the topic. So I have to say this in advance. Oftentimes I hear, don't put too many things into 1 hour. It'll be hard to remember. I'm telling you this, we have a lot of content to cover today, but it will be interesting. So Vlad and I think we are trying to over deliver here. So I think we have very good content to cover. Just to give you an overview, so we will cover some foundations and do a recap. We did a masterclass about hands-on vibe coding, context engineering, spec engineering, however you want to call it. And we also provide you with a link to the YouTube video. We go again into some definitions. Okay, what is vibe coding, context engineering, spec engineering? Then we cover some mindset aspects. So what does it mean to be proactive about those things, to approach it with ownership, with a growth mindset? Then we will look into a concept from NLP, from neuro-linguistic programming, which are the 7 levels. And we will see how can you align your entire mindset to become very successful in this, in building and co-creating with AI. We will look at some universal self-manipulation techniques. And the interesting thing here is these are self-manipulation techniques that people apply in their everyday life, but equally you can, or they can apply it in building with AI, and we will see some more helpful practices. This is basically success factor modeling. Then old reality versus new reality paradigms. And then we go over to Vlad, the new creator mindset, vibe coding continuum and AI coding spectrum, voices in the debate. So some famous people like Enrica Perthy, but also others. No silver bullet and non-deterministic, a bug or a feature. So we have a lot to cover. So how many of you are excited to go into it and are really willing to learn something? Please write a 1 into the chat if you are really willing to learn something now. Thank you. So let's go into it. And I want to start this with the first chapter or the first habit of Stephen Covey. Maybe some of you know the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a must read in my perspective. And there are 2 ways you could tackle this. I hear people sometimes say, oh, coding agents, they make too many mistakes. They are not secure to be used in an enterprise context. I continuously do things the way I used to do them successfully. Once AI is ready and better, maybe I will consider that. So that mindset, you can guess it, that would be rather a fixed mindset or a reactive mindset. Once it is more enhanced, maybe I will look into it, right? But I think you've taken a decision here and you want to rather approach this with a proactive mindset. And this proactive mindset is not only helpful when it comes to building with AI, it's of course helpful in all areas of life. So with a learning and growth mindset. So even though these AI agents may not be able to solve all problems yet, they still make mistakes. They are extremely powerful and valuable for completing certain tasks, and I'm open to working with them. So then there is this statement, the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you ask yourself. That's a famous quote from Tony Robbins. So how about I give you helpful questions in this context? So you could ask yourself, how could I use AI agents in a way that they help me and provide me value to my project? Or what's one more thing I could automate using AI? So by asking those helpful questions, you trigger your brain to give you helpful answers. It's the same when you ask a great prompt, you get a good answer. If you ask a good question to yourself, if you prompt yourself, you get a good answer out of it as well. So this is about proactiveness. And again, remember chapter 1 from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. So let me go back to the title. Why did I choose such an inclusive title? Best practices and mindset for co-creating with AI agents. Because we don't just want to limit it to vibe coding or context engineering or spec engineering. It's almost like a political or religious debate sometimes. We want to be inclusive because these are all helpful for different contexts. And let's look a little bit deeper into the definitions. So some of you may be aware of the post from Enrica Perthy. I think he's the ex-VP AI in Tesla from 3rd of February. And he really shaped the word vibe coding. So a chatbot-centric way to build software where you fully give into the vibes and forget that the code even exists. And you can hear it in my voice. This is really about being in a good state, being relaxed, and then speaking English language and let the AI build something. And you possibly don't even consider the code. So then there is another flavor of it, and I would say this is context engineering. And this is the practice of supplying an LLM agent with the right information, with the tools, with the structure, with the steering, at the right time in the right format, so the task can be plausibly solved within the context window. So this means you take ownership and you define all the context that the AI needs to complete the task. And then there is this spec engineering, which many of you, I bet most of you have heard about this as well. So this is about writing a structured version specification that includes the intent, the constraints, and acceptance checks. So this is a source of truth for your AI agent to build whatever you want to build. And spec, of course, you can define the specs at the beginning of the project, but you can also define specs later in the project. If you want to do a migration, if you want to build a new feature, it is also worth to use a kind of spec mode. So to remember it in a nutshell, the differences. So this is about vibe coding. You have an idea, you chat, then code is created, it's run and nudge. So this includes only minimal reading of the code. This is really being in the vibe and just speaking into it. So context engineering is making the model more competent by curating inputs, tools, and structure. So not just wording a prompt, but also saying, okay, this is the database schema. These are our security best practices. And then ultimately spec engineering, it's formalizing your intent. And then the agents, they implement the specs and verify against it. So those of you who have done this before, there might be then 12 steps. These are documented. So whenever a context window is hit, the AI agent can go back and create the tasks. So these are some basic definitions. And also before we go into the mindset, let's quickly repeat some practical aspects from our last session. And I think many of you, they are experienced with building with AI tools. So maybe this is not new for you, but still it could give a new perspective. So ask yourself, what else could I learn? And for those of whom who are not really aware, who have never built with AI, see this as an introduction. And then I recommend you to watch the video of Vlad and myself afterwards to really start building. So what we covered in that session was, first of all, the tools and the tech choices. And we will share the link later, by the way. The tools and the tech choices. So avoid building technical debt. So personally, I have a project I started with Supabase, which is a great tool to get started. But then after some time, I really wanted the full tech stack. So I migrated this to AWS cloud. And now I can use all the AI services in the AWS cloud, which is great. So, and think about it, what are the consequences starting with one tool versus another? Then providing the context and the steering. So creating those agent steering, and we will go deeper into this in a moment. When to use vibe mode, when to use spec mode. So maybe spec mode, you use it when you start the project. Vibe mode, you use it when you want to adjust some features, enhance some features. But when you build a completely new feature, you may consider to use the spec mode. Then we went through practical tips. One is using voice. So I've completed now 4 books over the last 8 weeks using voice flow. So I can really recommend you to use voice as input when you speak with your agentic AI coding feature. Then perspectives. So getting different perspectives. Maybe your AI coding assistant, say it's Kiro, say it's Claude Code, say it's Cursor. They give you a plan. Take this plan, put it into another AI tool like ChatGPT, like Claude natively, and reevaluate the plan. Ideally, connect that with an MCP server as well. Reevaluate the plan based on the documentation. Don't over-engineer. And also let AI interview you. We also went through some end-to-end project examples. We went through some new approaches where you can take a consumer level application and you can migrate it, or no, you can migrate it, but you can also create a mobile application with React Native. And that mobile application would be kind of a copy of your web application. So the AI agent would take things from one repository and build in another repository. So moving on. So a small deep dive on these different techniques. So definitely use several coding. If you use several coding agents, then all of those coding agents, they have different names for the steering documents. For example, in Claude, it's called Claude MD. In Kiro, these are the keyring features. In Cursor, this again has a different name. There is, for example, this unification now, which is agents called MD. You can consider that, or you just write into the Claude.md reference file, please consider the steering documents in the Kiro steering folder, or please consider these other steering documents in MD files, so you can refer to other steering files. Use documentations and references. This is super crucial. You can connect to different documentations via MCP to API documentations. You can try out context7.com as well for any API documentation. Another best practice that I heard is if something is frequently used, actually copy the documentation into your repository and keep it up to date so that it doesn't always have to visit this other MCP server. Additional best practices, defining agent hooks, for example, for frequent security checks, for translation, every time a new blog article is released, translated automatically. For larger projects, consider cost performance. If you want to migrate, have a huge migration project, it might make a difference if one model is 5 times as expensive versus another one. And prompting matters, build a strong prompting muscles. And we will go into prompting as well in this session. So these are some technical things. And by the way, I'm continuously accepting other people to join the session. If you joined a bit late, the recording will be available on YouTube this time. Modularity is very important. So for complex new features, one best practice is start in a new repository, build it, make sure it works, and then pinpoint to the other repository to rebuild this. For bigger projects, consider composable architectures, working with specialized primitives and API contracts, have clear boundaries and ways how these components interact. And then you can even consider using fine-tuning in specific components. So these composable architectures, they are more and more relevant, and this could apply to your software, but this could also apply to different components of different softwares that now, connected by MCP or connected with AI agents, can create completely new customer experiences and values. And for smaller projects, if you're just getting started, also consider mono repositories. And of course, then within this mono repository, then you have a certain modularity. All of those things that I'm saying, by the way, you can, of course, reach out to Vlad or myself afterwards, but you can also iterate with AI to go deeper. Okay, what does it mean, modularity? How could I apply this in my specific project context without over-engineering it? Please consider that my project has this many users. And another thing I really want to highlight is use voice, because you can way better explain the context, and what AI really needs is a strong context. Use images, use screenshots for debugging, but also for inspiration. And also refactor frequently. So once you've built something, it works, you can ask, okay, is this really in compliance with our security standards? is this built in an effective way, or is this maybe inefficient code? So refactor frequently. With all of this was a small repetition. We still have 40 minutes left, and these 40 minutes will now be completely dedicated to mindset. Let me just grab a glass of water. And I want to ask you, just to keep the energy high, how many of you are excited to dive deeper into the mindset now? Please write a 1 into the chat. And these things that you're going to learn now, they are not only related to vibe coding, of course. Maybe there are some things that you consider for your own life, some learnings there as well. So be open, be curious. We're going to go into this now. And we're going to start with this. So there's this term strategic procrastination and breakthrough. So I guess many of you or all of you want to become a master using AI agents, making it really intuitive to work with AI versus continuously doing things in a traditional way. So you are at some point, and there is another side. So you want to get through that. You want to get the breakthrough. It's like me at the beginning of the year when I thought, okay, I want to spend at least 30 minutes per day, 10 minutes, 30 minutes per day learning about AI. And somehow I didn't do it so much. And then at some point, I'm really immersed in it. So how to make that breakthrough, how to get to the other side? What is it that makes somebody act and embrace the change rather than just standing still? And what you're expecting on that other side is there is a lot to explore there. There is some uncertainty. Maybe you're going to do more things, completely new things, right? But how do you actually get to this other side? You may have this intent, but how do you get to the other side? So meanwhile, while you're asking yourself that question, there may be some pressure coming up. There are new models released every week. There are announcements of layoffs in big companies. You are thinking, okay, this winner takes it all. And maybe my company, my job, my startup will not be relevant anymore. So there is this pressure coming up. And then you want to embrace it. You want to learn, you want to study. But sometimes there are then your environment pulling you back, the comfort zone pulling you back, strategic procrastination, which is also often about perfectionism, pulling you back. So what does it take to get through that, to get to the other side? And this is exactly what we are diving into now. I mean, you can think basically of all areas of your life. And the best example is, you got to do some workout, but continuously your friends are going to pull you back. Okay, let's just have some pizza. All right, let's have some pizza. You are ahead of the breakthrough, right? These 2 millimeters are missing, but then you're going back, and it takes some time until you are there again, where the breakthrough is ahead. So we want to see how you can make this breakthrough. Let's look into it. And what we will cover now is actually the 7 levels model of Robert Dills, which is a model from neuro-linguistic programming. And you can very well use it to describe someone's map of the world. So let's say, what is a suitable and helpful model of the world in order to become a master using AI tools? How many of you are excited to learn about that? What would be a useful mindset for that? And we're going to go through all of these levels now. So the first one is you need a purpose. So why do you want this? And now please notice the difference. It could be that you want to build something new. You want to build something meaningful. You always had this vision. You wanted to do this. This would help so many people, but you never had the tools, and now you can do this. Or you can say, I always wanted to have this impact to those people, or to yourself, or to your family. It could also be that you say, I'm really afraid that I'm going to lose my job. I'm really afraid of that. How can I then provide for my family or so on, or for the people? So notice that there are very different emotions. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other one, but just notice, what is this motivation for you? And does it serve you, or is there maybe something else you want to attach up to it? And if you only have this away from motivation, if you're only afraid you may lose your job, then it's super, super helpful to also create this pull. So what is it that you really want? And we will have an exercise where we'll go a little bit deeper into this. So what is your purpose? Why do you want to learn this? Maybe you can innovate. Maybe you can be playful with it. What is it that you want? So the next level is the identity. Who are you in that new identity? So maybe now you call yourself a software engineer, a product manager. In that new identity, you might be an AI full stack engineer or an AI orchestrator. So as an AI orchestrator, you now come to work, come to your project, and you're going to do things in a certain way because you are an AI full stack engineer, an AI orchestrator. So really take and embrace this new identity. So what is an identity that would be helpful for that? The next one is, what do you believe about AI? What do you believe about the world, your ability to learn? What do you value? So for example, a helpful way of thinking about it would be, AI is here to help. Responsible AI is everyone's responsibility. I value playfulness. I value trying new things. And these are, for example, you can use those as affirmations. So in the morning, you can say these things. You can be playful. You can be allowed with it. I value playfulness. I like trying new things with AI, and see what notice it makes. The next one are habits and strategies. So what are the habits that you have? What do you do consistently? How do you do things? And what do you focus on? For example, wouldn't it be helpful to spend at least 8 hours per week on AI tutorials or newsletters, or defining some goals, connecting with them, and actually building some stuff? Maybe if you work in an organization, there are some AI initiatives that you could join. Do some thought leadership, or ask people in your environment and create a mastermind about it. So the next level is, what are the concrete actions that you are taking? What would you like to prioritize in the near future, say in the next 5 days? What would you like to prioritize in the very near future? You could register for a YouTube tutorial. You could ask a mentor, and you could ask Vlad or myself to speak in your company or to do a workshop for you. Whatever it is, what are concrete actions that you take? And ultimately, your environment. What is the influence, and how do you create a supportive environment? So let's say you work in an engineering department, and 90% of the people, they are completely against AI. And while you are in the coffee room, you are speaking about it, and people are saying bad things about AI. So what might this environment do to you? If you think of a thermostat, would it bring you up or down? It might bring you down. So think of your environment, and how could you be proactive about it? Proactiveness. How can you shape an environment that is helpful for your AI learning journey? So if I think of myself in the tech company where I work, of course, it's a very helpful environment, but also having people like Vlad around me. We met each other on an AI event through a speaking opportunity. We got to know each other. So now Vlad is part of my environment, and we help each other in AI as well. So with this, let's look into proactiveness once again, because it is really a key to success. And we will look at victim mindset versus taking charge, being proactive. So one is, AI tends to use older Java versions due to the, well, you can say it always uses older versions. The reason is actually due to training date. AI is not really aware what the latest Java version is. However, if you are proactive, you can make sure it uses, for example, a web search to check the time, and then, or in the session initialization, it should check which date it is. It should check what is the current version. You can be proactive about it. The next one is, it doesn't know, and it creates inappropriate designs. Well, it may not have the context. What kind of design should it create? So what you can do, of course, is you can create a strong context, maybe a design guidance for the AI, including examples. Another one might be, well, it doesn't know what it wants. It is not reliable. Well, you could say, the steering is missing. Imagine in your company, there are no rules. There is no culture. How do you think people in your company would act if there is no culture, if there are no principles? So you want to create those principles. And for the AI, these are steering documents. So see, there are so many, and we are going deeper into this now, there are so many ways how you can relate what is helpful with a human and with a team, what is also helpful for an AI. And we are going deeper into this now, and I'm very excited about this particular part. So please pay close attention. And those who are fully aware and concentrated, please write a 1 into the chat if you are fully aware and concentrated for this next part. Thank you. So I see a lot of ones. Then let's go into it. And we're going to start with some anti-patterns. So some very popular and famous self-manipulation techniques. So the first self-manipulation technique is thinking always, I know it the best, and having this tunnel view. So it's not considering different perspectives. It's only relying on past experiences. Yes, it didn't work in the past. It didn't work when I was 20, so it probably doesn't work now. It didn't work when we did that project, so it doesn't work now. So being really stiff and not considering different perspectives. And when you think of working with AI, it could be, AI will never be able to do this. Or you would just rely on one model and not get different perspectives from different models. It may even be the same model, but we will go into this later on, but you can even get different perspectives from the same model. So the next one is limiting beliefs and unhelpful questions. For example, you could precondition yourself with something like, I can't do this. I'm not good at this. There are these and these conditions preventing me to learn those new things. I'm too old, I'm too young. And what these limiting beliefs do is they actually stop you from taking charge, from making progress. And when you think of AI, it could be you only focus about the limitations about AI. Yeah, but it's not good at this. It's not good at that. Instead of asking a more helpful question. We will go into the helpful questions in a moment. And the third anti-pattern here, the third self-manipulation technique, continuously using anti-patterns. So you do the same thing over and over again, and you expect a different result. So some people, they may always eat very unhealthy things, and they expect to lose weight, as an example. So maybe taking a step back, reconsider would make sense. In the AI example, it's continuously fixing symptoms instead of stepping back, reassessing and asking, hey, could you maybe check in the documentation whether this makes sense or not? So if we look now at the recommended patterns, so getting different perspectives, so asking smart questions, working with mentors, putting yourself into someone else's shoes. So how would this person think about it? how would an external person think about it? Ask your team for their perspectives. And if you think of AI, so use various AI models and revisit the same issue from different perspectives. So you could even take the code or the plan that was created in Claude Code and go into the web version of Claude, or you use your normal application and say, hey, does this really make sense? Is this maybe over-engineered? Is this appropriate? And get those different perspectives, or ask ChatGPT or ask Grok about a perspective. So the next one is, and this is regarding beliefs, helpful beliefs. Success factor modeling beliefs. What would your role model think and believe about it? Or what would have to be true for this to work out? Or tell yourself something like, I can do this. Like every morning, tell yourself, I can do this. I can learn this. And it's doing something. It's conditioning your mindset to be open, to be confident to learn this. And you could instruct an AI to solve this. For example, as a great software developer and AI engineer, although there is a controversial debate if this is actually helpful or not. But I think for the way of thinking about it, it is helpful, treating an AI like this, with this identity as well. And the next one here is taking a step back and re-evaluating. So maybe it makes sense to change your approach. In the example of losing weight, different workout, different nutrition, setting a clear goal, connecting with it, creating new habits. In the example of AI, stepping back, re-evaluating based on the documentation, and ask the AI if it's maybe over-engineered. So we have some more anti-patterns, and I promised you to, it's really a full session, but you can also watch the recording later if it's a little bit too fast. But if you stick with me, if you stay focused, then you're going to understand all of it. So the next anti-pattern here is action without an objective or purpose. It might be in your private life, starting each day with no clear objectives, with no purpose, taking actions without goals. And in the AI, starting a vibe coding project without clear intent, or just say, okay, now I can build anything in my organization, versus taking a step back. Okay, this thing, it's so not crucial for my value proposition. I should buy this and focus on building the other thing. So the next one here is wanting to do all at once. Unclear prioritization, skipping the reflection part in the planning phase and starting all at once. In your private life could happen. And with the AI, giving massive instructions to the AI without prioritization and building a lot of technical debt. Because you start the project without prioritization, it's all getting complex, it doesn't work. And what do you do then? So the helpful patterns here are align each action to a clear outcome and purpose, and regularly reflect about your decisions in life. When it comes to the AI, give a clear intent, define a clear outcome to your AI agent, and define overall goals and define short-term goals as well. Do conscious planning and conscious iteration. This is the second one. So plan based on your outcomes and purpose, prioritize and reassess frequently. This applies for yourself. When it comes to the AI, create a plan and a sequence and define what features to start with and build iteratively. So we have two more to cover. We have two more anti-patterns and recommended patterns here to cover. So let's look at the first one. It's a strong anti-pattern. It's this perfectionism. Insisting on perfectionism always. And this can be a very strong procrastination strategy. Yes, but I am somebody who is too perfectionistic. So what you're going to do about it? Maybe think of overcoming this eventually. And insisting on doing it one way versus another way. And with the AI, you could then get stuck in minor tasks rather than moving forward. Maybe you spend 1 hour designing this one image for the website instead of saying, AI, please design this image for me. And a few weeks later, you may realize I don't even need this image anymore. Or you spend some time doing it, but you move forward. And then ignoring principles and standards. So while, yes, in many cases, it makes sense to be fast, there are some things that you should not compromise on. And if you think of your private life, if you always go with the flow and ignore the consequences, or if you treat others not respectfully, what are some principles that you would not step back from? And if you think of working with AI, you could use an outdating tech stack. You could treat security as optional. You can ignore very important architecture patterns. So these are principles and standards you probably don't want to compromise on. So what are some recommended patterns? Of course, the first one is the opposite of perfectionism and procrastination. It's this bias for action. It's this flexibility. So be clear in what situations is perfection necessary versus not. In most cases, it is not, so you can move forward. And I'm not a developer myself, Vlad is, but I'm with a lot of techies. So I realize oftentimes there is this tendency for perfectionism. So maybe it is really a step out of the comfort zone sometimes for a developer, but I recommend you to, sometimes the 80% version is enough. And then having standards and principles, of course, it is important. So in your private life, what are some things you don't want to compromise on? Did you ever write those down? If you didn't, consider writing those down. What are some things you don't compromise on? Having character, what does it mean for you? What do you tolerate versus what do you not tolerate? And of course, with your AI, never compromise on security on your coding projects. And I think responsible AI, fair AI, it is a responsibility of all of us. So this technology is so powerful. So this is a super important message for me. Responsible AI is everybody's responsibility, and ethical AI. We have another part which we will go through now very quickly because I want to do one conditioning exercise with you. And then I also want to give sufficient time to Vlad. And one thing in advance, we may take 10 minutes more, but if you have to leave sharp, as I said, you will get the YouTube recording so that you can get the entire session. So let's briefly look again at growth mindset. And many of you, maybe you know the book, maybe you know what growth mindset means. It is, I can do this. I am at the forefront of this. I can learn anything. So tell that to yourself over and over again and condition yourself. And then, of course, to stay consistent with that, you take action. And use the LLM as your teacher. So team up with it and approach it from an abundance perspective. So what does abundance mean in this case? So abundance means there's an abundance of opportunities. So this AI agent will not take this away from you. There are more great ideas out there than people who could solve them. However, the kind of work is changing. So you must embrace the change as well. So this is also about leadership. So in leadership, it's important to set a clear context, to set clear goals, to not micromanage. If directions are clear, then trust, assess, and check. Also own it. So own the results of your AI team. The results are as strong as the context that you give. Ask for help if needed. So rather than going loops with the AI for 8 hours, maybe just ask a colleague who can help you with it. Prioritize and focus, build tight feedback loops, consider to automate that as well. Develop agents just as you would develop humans. You can add more context frequently. You can also say at some point you want to fine-tune a specific part of your software. Develop the different parts. And be decisive. Decide, communicate, and then learn and adjust. Take in different perspectives. And this is a great thing in, I think, human psychology, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So you have your own perspective, but sometimes it makes sense to put yourself into the shoes of the AI agent. And of course, oftentimes into the shoes of the user. And each of them has their own, what are they good at? What are their expectations? What is their model of the world? And consider those different perspectives. And the AI agent, it has its own model of the world based on what it's trained, based on what it's targeted on. So consider this. And we have a few more here. So this is about communicating with your AI agent. And I will go quickly through those so we get to the conditioning part. So you got to understand the psychology of the model. This is the first thing. The second thing is be clear in your communication, whether you use voice or whether you do it in a written way. Prompt engineering, good prompting is actually a craft. Don't underestimate good prompting. Writing very long prompts. This is also one thing I learned from Vlad. Vlad writes very long prompts with clear instructions. And reading between the lines. So this is about prompt engineering. Why is it called prompt engineering? Because it's also about trial and error. And what makes a good prompt engineer? Be clear in your communication. Be willing and able to iterate. Remove biases. Instead of focusing on what you already know, ask good questions. And have this metacognitive thinking skill. So thinking about thinking. Why does the AI model think the way it thinks? Why do I think the way it thinks? Maybe I have this limiting belief that I'm not good at this, but why do I think that? What maybe happened in my past, or was there somebody who told this to me? So I can be proactive and change it. So this metacognitive thinking skill. Then iterating and clarifying versus trying to do everything in one shot. And also reflecting. If something didn't work out, ask the AI to take a step back, document it so the mistake doesn't happen next time. So that was about prompt engineering. And now I want to invite you to go to the conditioning part. And this is an interesting exercise. And for some of you, this may be new. So I want to ask you to approach this with a curious mindset. And you may either stand up and close your eyes. You can also stay seated. However you want to approach it. It's a very valuable experience to do this. So this will be leaning on the concept of these 7 levels, and you will explore what is your own purpose about it? What is your own identity that makes you really good at this? And what are some actions that you maybe want to take? To get you into that state, we will use the so-called triad. So this is a model how you can instantly change your emotions and your state. So getting into a strong physiology, focusing on what you want, and using some helpful language that actually opens your mind, that gives you energy. And again, with this, you're now going to explore a little bit your why, your identity, your beliefs, and some habits and some actions. So with this, I now ask you to take a deep breath and close your eyes. And we're going to go on a journey for the next 3 minutes. And in a moment, I will ask you to think about something that you are proud of and that you are grateful for. And it could be something big or something small. Could have been days ago or years ago. Just something you feel good about, you are proud of and you're grateful for. So you can think of that now, that moment that you are so proud of and grateful for. And get into that moment and see what you saw back then. See that now. So with your eyes closed, you can look around you. Where were you in that moment? Maybe you were by yourself, maybe somebody was around you. And really stand the way you were standing back then. Maybe you were sitting, but take this posture, take this physiology when you were so proud and so grateful. And also focus on what you were focusing on back then. Really be in that moment and focus on that. Maybe you're focusing on the moment itself or the outcome or what else might be possible. Or maybe you were just focusing on the gratitude of on the beauty of that moment. And some of you might be now already very deep in this feeling, and some of you may not be so deep in it, but no matter how deep you are in it, the more often you do this, the more often you practice it, the better you will become at it. So in that moment when you are so proud, standing the way you stand, having this physiology, focusing on whatever you focus on, what kind of language comes to your mind? Maybe it's a beautiful sentence like, anything is possible, or I'm so proud, I'm so grateful. What kind of language comes to your mind? And what does this mean that this happened? And you can think of all those, maybe there is one sentence or one word that you can connect it with that always brings you into that state. So from that state and noticing that, and this is a beautiful learning, whenever you connect yourself with those moments, you can feel that feeling of pride and gratitude. And you can just have these beautiful emotions inside of you. And the more often you train this, the better it becomes. So imagine going into the future and you become really, really good at using those AI skills. And in that moment in the future, it might be in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years. Think of what did you build? What did you create? And what's the impact it has? So what's the purpose? Now, being really an expert in this, having really mastered this and being a role model, what does it mean? Maybe on your personal growth, maybe on the way you contribute to others, maybe being a role model, maybe this brings something into your life which you always wanted. So what's that purpose? And as that person who really mastered all of this, what's the identity that you take? Who are you? Maybe the AI full stack engineer, the AI orchestrator, or maybe something completely different. Maybe that entrepreneur. Whatever it is, what is this identity that you can connect with frequently? And from that perspective, as that future self, as that wise self, maybe give 2 or 3 advices to yourself in the present moment. What are some actions you could take on that present day, November 10th, 2025? What are some actions that you could take? So with all of these experiences and knowing about that purpose, and also noticing that if it wasn't fully clear now, it will get more clear in the next hours or days, with that identity and with the clarity about the next actions you take, you can take a deep breath and slowly come back and be fully present in that moment. And I welcome you back. So thank you for doing this little journey, this little explorative journey all together. You can text now in the chat, how do you feel? How do you feel right now? And so this was a kind of conditioning. I think the one learning was to change your state with that triad. I see here centered, yes. And the other thing is really get clarity. What is the why? What is that identity? And what are the actions that you take? And trust me, this will really accelerate your learning journey, also going out of that meeting. With all of this, I now want to hand over to Vlad for the next part, the new mindset. Thank you, Vlad. And Vlad is going to share his own screen. So we're going to transition to another screen now.
Yeah, so I hope now you can hear me and see my screen. So basically, we were talking about this new mindset. So we're going to go again a bit over how things were with software development, how they are changing, and maybe where they're going. Essentially, I think for everybody now, it's clear, or it's becoming more clear, that we will be building software with AI agents, and we're going to be moving from the pixel perfect prototypes to a fast-paced innovation, and we have to prepare for that. So essentially, like the whole, we're gonna first make high fidelity prototypes, and we're gonna have a really a fixed specification and rigid timelines, and we're gonna have sprint planning for the next 2 weeks, and all those things. We're gonna spend months of planning and trying to figure out what are exactly the requirements, so that we don't overspend on research and development. It's gonna change as R&D costs essentially go down, or we can build much more, much faster, and we can experiment way faster with much less invest time and money. So essentially, what we are seeing so far, it's like a lot of the big players, and we're going to talk about why it's mostly the big players. I'm talking Meta, Google, Amazon. Mostly the big players, they have like a lot of code already being generated today by AI. I mean, we have 1.5 years ago, there was already at Google like over 50% code generated by AI, and all of those companies are moving there. Of course, we have to consider that at those companies, we have a lot of processes, like process and guardrails for quality. So the early issues that we have been seeing with AI, with coding agents and so on, a lot of those things were kind of mitigated out of the box with the big players because they have the process, they have the testing in place, the quality gates and everything, where you really fast can give feedback to the agent. Okay, here didn't work, there didn't work, fix it. But also the other point is the tools are the worst they will ever be. So the tools are constantly changing. Whoever tried 1 year ago to generate code, the pace of what's happening right now is completely on a different level. So it's constantly changing and it's moving super fast. So every couple of weeks, there is a new step where we see something being quite radically improved. And at some point, we're going to reach a point of diminishing returns until there is a new step change. But it's constantly moving forward, so we're going to get better and better tools, essentially. And then the other thing is from hours, so we're talking about hours, not weeks, not months. We're talking about hours to experiment, to try something new, to move forward. And then this thing is essentially like we used to have old school models where like release cycles were once a year, once every half a year, whatever. Then we had Agile, where we released every 2 weeks. And then the best teams actually were already capable of releasing multiple times a day. But now we are increasing the value creation possible within those hours. So the thing is like how to leverage the diminishing cost of experimentation iteration. And the other thing is like, I mean, since to AI, we need to provide like a bit more of context in terms of product requirement, documentation, specifications. It's kind of a bit provocatively, I'm calling it micro waterfall with AI, but we're going to see in a second how we have to structure everything. So let's talk about the terms. Till already mentioned vibe coding. So essentially the process of building software by articulating intent, iterating rapidly, and letting AI handle implementation details. Focus on what, not on how. But vibe coding actually it's a continuum, it's a spectrum where on the left side, for prototypes, we can just tell the agent what we want or the website, and we get a prototype essentially. So just follow the vibes, don't dig under the hood. And on the other side, we want something to go to production. We want actually a real product. And there we actually have to employ rather an agentic engineering approach to vibe coding, where we have like process and guardrails. That's the name of the game. So choose wisely depending on the goal, where you start, where you want to go, because as Tilman mentioned, you don't want to build technical debt in from the beginning, because now you have the opportunity to actually mitigate that step with a good process in place. And the codegen formula essentially, as I said, process and guardrails. So like we have clear workflows, structured prompts, iterative refinement, human in the loop with reviewing the code, or asking actually the code, an agent to review the code and to improve upon. So this is also a cycle that you can, like a step that you can do in the cycle. And then the guardrails, like everything that we've known for decades already, like automated testing, static code analysis, code reviews, security scanning, performance monitoring, all those things that we can build in, and we can brainstorm with the agent how to create that, even if we don't have the technical knowledge ourselves. And then the foundation, as mentioned before, also the context engineering is the foundation. So there is a steering. What conventions should the agent follow? What's important for me? What are the conventions that are important for me, for the team, for the product? What is the vision of this product? I mean, it doesn't have to be super detailed, but what's the long-term vision? what are we building and why. So essentially, we need to integrate, we need to onboard the agents in the AI the same way we are onboarding a new team member, right? Like when you're getting a new team member, a colleague or whatever, we tell them like, I don't know, in 5 years, our project or our product is going to be this thing and it's going to be doing this and that and so on. So there is a clear vision. So there's an alignment to that vision from the beginning. And then there's a clear steering in terms of conventions, what is good quality, code quality, and what is a good product, what's important to us. And then we move to product requirement documents. What feature solve user problems, what we want to build right now, and the more concrete specification derivative of the product requirement document, where we also have like architectural decisions, what actually has to be built and how should the system behave. And then we actually can go ahead and do the tests before the code generation. So it's a kind of like test-driven development, TDD, but we don't have those iterations back and forth. And the refactoring at the end, we actually kind of pulling that step ahead of time, and we might do an iteration or two, but that's about it. And then the point here is like we have persistent context, like the steering division, and we have transient context, the product requirement documents and the specification, which are for each session, for each feature, they're obviously different, and the steering division, they stay. And AI excels at implementation when it's given clear intent and success criteria, as already mentioned. Here we have exactly the context engineering that we talked about. So persistent context is what's the architecture and pattern that we want, coding standard, convention, domain knowledge and business rules. All those things are part of that. The transient context on the other side is the current task, what is relevant to actually what we are trying to do right now and the recent changes and goals. And you have to really think about it. If you want to get good output, it's basically it's a system where if you have good input, you get good output. If you have bad input, you have bad output. And we have different levels essentially that we can use. The first level is the autocomplete. So we have the GitHub Copilot where I'm writing the human is writing the code and we have suggestions. Maybe we get to around 20% of AI code contribution to our overall code base. The next level is the web platforms like Lovable, V0, Bolt, New, and so on. So there we have like, it's a great opportunity for rapid prototyping. So it's all being generated. I have the opportunity to adjust things and move here and there some things, but at the end of the day, it's like completely generated and each step and iteration is being generated. But I have a limited control over architecture, limited control over key points that I might want to have. So from my perspective, it's mostly I can prototype really fast things, I can test really fast things, I can have things deployed really fast. But if I'm gonna build a scalable, complex system, that's not my preferred choice to go. Still might be possible, and we're gonna see how the future evolves. But when we want to do something more complex and a production-ready system, there are different approaches. And then we go to level 3, where we have AI-enabled integrated development environments, where it's kind of, we have, again, like the Copilot, we have an agent who is supporting us. So here, Cursor, KiroDev from Amazon, and so forth, where we go around 60% of generated code, where we can actually delegate also tasks to the agent to completely conduct on their own. And then we have actually the level 4, where the command line interface, Blade Runner. So here we have like a Claude Code, Codex of the world, where actually we have to take care of what it has to be built, not how. And the agent does all of those things for us. And actually the future from our perspective is where we're going to have multi-agent setups working as a team. And we can clearly see already this in, for example, in KiroDev from AWS, where I can have an agent that is going to be the coder, going to do the changes based on the PRD documents, product requirement documents, and the spec. And then we're going to have another agent that's going to review the code based on, it's going to be automatically triggered when change is made in the repository. Then we're going to have the documentation update agent. We're going to have all those internationalization agent and so forth, and so on and so forth. But essentially, multi-agent setup is something that it's already happening, and I think we're going to see much more of it. And then if we stack those levels, essentially for vibe coding, you can go from level 2 to level 4. But if you want to go to the direction of within the vibe coding spectrum to agentic engineering, the level 4 and the CLI tools are the way to go. And even though, yes, command line interface tools, it's a bit scary for some people that don't have technical background, but it's actually surprisingly easy to start and go. It's a couple of steps to set it up and install it, and you can already have a conversation with the agent exactly like in the website. So if you haven't tried it, go ahead and do that. Try it. The conversation process, use AI to brainstorm and refine. So start with a rough idea, expand the solution space conversationally, ask one question at a time, let the AI generate multiple approaches. And then the human, you choose the direction and how to implement. with the agent. So think out loud with AI and let AI be the agent be your partner. So it looks a bit like this. So expand and contract is the whole process. We have what are we building and why. We are exploring what fits better, what fits together with our current vision. We're expanding the solution space. And once we had the brainstorming session, we decided what actually we want to build and how, we get to all those cornerstones. Product requirement documentation, specs, including architectural decisions, open API specification, database models, data model, API description, and SDK, software development kit description. So all of those things we can generate as well. So basically, step by step, we can make our way into generating those steps that become fixed and become a cornerstone that reduces our solution space and gives guidance to the agent on top of all of our coding best practices and so forth and so on. So the mindset shift goes from perfectionist to pragmatist, from planner to experimenter, from implementer to orchestrator. So the future is conversational, continuous, and AI native. So we have to get on board and actually learn the skill because there are some new skills coming along. The voices in the debate we talked about. So there's like a lot of optimists, there's a lot of skeptics. One of the most prominent optimists is Andrej Karpathy, OpenAI co-founder and ex-SYA director, actually the guy who coined the term vibe coding. And so essentially, he's talking about a decade of agents and how we're going to build multiple agents and this multi-agent setup. He's talking about software 3.0 and the large language models as operating system that for that software version. On the other side, we have a lot of developers, and I see a lot of this, like many experienced developers, many people with decades of experience under their belt. They've tried AI months ago, maybe a year ago. They got disappointed and they said like, this doesn't work. It's not for me. I'm gonna just ditch it. So you have to push through the initial issues. You have to push through the initial struggles. You have to continue and learn. It's a new skill. You have to learn the new skill in order to get the better results. You have to spend the time to do the setup, the configuration, the steering, to learn how to use it, to learn what's important, what not, to find your style, and learning by doing. You have to get behind the whole thing, and then you're going to get better results as well. So the challenge, of course, AI is not a silver bullet, nothing is, but we have the hype, but we have also some challenges. So how do we get from, I tried it, I was disappointed, and how do I get now the better results? And then actually there's a huge paradox that I've also been noticing, the technical background, exactly because of that, because people are trying it, have super high expectations because of the hype, and then they're disappointed. When you have a technical background, you might actually, this might actually hinder your progress because you're saying, okay, this is garbage, I'm not going to use it. And it's not on the level that I was expecting. So that's the thing, learn by doing, build the skill, and focus on setup and configuration, process and guardrails, adapt, iterate, or essentially going to be left behind. So that's the thing. And everybody here obviously is interested in the topic. So you're going to find a way to leverage this shift. So the other thing is, the biggest point of the people that are not satisfied, it's because it's not deterministic solution, right? We expect computers to behave deterministically. You give the same input, you get the same output every single time. But actually, when you think about it, developers today, human developers, we are also not deterministic, right? Like you give the same task to a developer A, you're going to get one approach. You give it the same task to developer B, you're going to get another approach. You're going to give the same task on one developer Monday morning, first thing, you're going to get one solution. Same task, same developer. Friday evening, you're going to get a different solution. So actually, the point with being deterministic, I mean, from my perspective, is up for debate. Like, is it, when we're talking about execution, so we are, at runtime, we are handling data with AI. Maybe we want more focus there on deterministic approach, right? But when we're talking about software development, there are multiple ways to achieve the same goal. So the perspective shift should be AI is not non-determinism for software development. It's actually not a bug. It's a feature borrowed from human creativity. So we are capable of generating or creating multiple solutions to the same problem, right? So and there are multiple valid solutions or correct strategies to solve the same problem. So that's actually not a bug from my perspective. And then the key difference here is actually that with AI, we can control this variability. There is the temperature setting, there is actually the prompts, the steering, and so on. So we can actually reduce the variability to a very high percentage, especially when the project that we're working on grows a bit. So the more context from the project perspective, and this every decision that we're taking becomes part of that context and that project, it's giving hints to the AI agents. So at some point, when you have enough context, enough like project becomes, I don't know, 20, 25, 30,000 lines of code, the alignment, if you have your agentic steering configured correctly, the alignment to that project becomes really visible. So I have a clear example from my background and experience where one of the projects I started in the beginning, it's a collection of tiny apps that I'm going to show at the end. In the beginning, I had to do a lot of refactoring and improving things here and there, and I was learning how to use AI agents. And every next step, every next application, it was more and more aligned because my work in the beginning contributed to providing enough context and guardrails and guidelines that the agents are able now to use this and create aligned to me. And that's the very interesting thing, to me, aligned to me in my vision, solutions that I'm super satisfied with. And actually, you can see that in our last post on YouTube where we recorded the session, and I'm going to show it in a second as well. The tiny application that is a CV generator. We created it within the live session, like around 10 minutes or something. And it was, I had to adjust very little on it in order to publish it online. So what must humans provide, right? Like clear communication, effective communication of the intent is one of the most important things. We have to build trust, like spend the time to set up and configure your process and guardrails. We need architecture and system design input. So essentially, you can brainstorm if you're not technical. Even more so, you can brainstorm with the agent, ask it for advantages, disadvantages of each approach, and make your own decisions. We need critical judgment where we actually have to make some decisions to have a more aligned user experience at the end if we're building something customer facing. And then context and requirements, understanding business needs and trade-offs. So again, we can, on all of those steps, we can actually brainstorm and do kind of like reflection sessions with the agent. And all of those things, the outputs of those sessions become also part of the context if you add them to the steering documents. And as Tilman mentioned, different tools use different files, so just check the documentation where you have to put it. And then, of course, verification and testing. We have also considerable steps there where agents will help us with MCP integration for the Chrome DevTools and so on, to Puppeteer approaches where you can tell the agent to verify the solution, but always having tests being generated first, as mentioned before, and then the code. It's actually a quite good approach there. And to wrap it up, so the key mindset shift: AI is not just an assistant, it's a compiler for intent. The craft is defining vision, constraints, and guardrails. The new skill is expressing clearly in ambiguity. And then AI code generation essentially is we describe what the outcome should be and what's to be achieved, and we're using natural language as the new interface. And before that, we had like high-level languages and assembly for the ones that are technical and long enough to know that sort of stuff. And essentially, as I mentioned, there is this the two platforms that I've built using this approach. The tiny tool stack, I'm just going to show it quickly for the AI part. So there is like a lot of applications. If you go there, there's already quite a lot of applications that have been created. There is we were talking about meta prompting and big prompts. So essentially, you have to kind of fill in the wizard, and you get a big prompt that then you can reuse here for marketing purposes or for vibe coding. So this thing is for creating a prototype for Lovable. It's super because you get a pre-filled tech stack, UI guidelines, role, general guidelines, and so on. So you just have to give the overview and the features, and you get the prompt. There is the instructions coding generator where we are talking about good coding practices. So I'm always using the common guidelines, security guidelines, and I'm nowadays building almost exclusively in React and TypeScript. And I can then download this file for the different tools that I'm using. I can wholeheartedly recommend Cloud Code. The codex nowadays is also quite good, but like Cloud Code with Sonnet 4.5 is my favorite still. And actually, this is, if we go one step further, so CV generator. So this is actually the application that we've created live in 10 minutes last time, where you get a generated CV. You can edit it on the left, and you can download this PDF, but also you can actually, within the browser with a web-based LLM, you can just put your data in any format that you want, and it's gonna pre-fill it for you. And another thing that I wanted to show is once you build your product, you can go to, let's see, Pipes Monitor. That's the other thing. This is a monitoring, analytics, and error tracking platform where essentially you can monitor live sessions. You can do analytics in terms of also conversion tracking and all sort of analytics with sessions, unique visitors, retention, and so on. So all of this, by the way, is also built with AI enabled. So it's right now becoming more and more sophisticated, so you can track errors at the client on the client devices. And also the integration with the feedback is essentially you get a pop-up automatically where people can send you feedback with screenshots. And for this, we've provided actually a 20% discount for everybody that's in the session using this code, Vibes Monitor Special 20. And there is also a free account, so go ahead and just try it out. Any feedback, any questions on all the topics, just don't hesitate to contact us. And back to you.
Yes, thank you, Vlad. So I have one more question to you, Vlad, and then I really want to encourage all of you. Please give a comment and a like and save our LinkedIn post. So this is how one way you could say thank you or share some gratitude, just to help us grow our audience a bit. And to those who comment, we will also share the recording link with you later on. We will publish it on YouTube. Thank you for all the gratitude that you are sharing here in the chat. And really before we close the session, Vlad, one figure that you shared really stick to my mind. It's the 76%. Could you maybe just elaborate on the 76% and why this is so important?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, as I said, like a lot of people are getting disappointed, and it's the majority right now, from my perspective. And I'm really trying in my day-to-day work, I'm trying to convince people this is a valuable approach that actually we're underestimating. And it's all with all major shifts, it has been that way, right? Like there's always once it's the clear solution or the clear path, everybody's like, okay, yeah, this is actually the clear path to go. But it takes time to become the clear solution. So you have to be a bit of, yeah, in this case, more optimist. But the data is there. Like if you sit down, put the time in, do the setup, learn the skill, you're getting results and you're amazed by the results. So the data is there. Be one of the first movers and don't wait to be the mass, to be the clear way, the mass adoption before you start learning. But I guess this is already like everybody being interested in being here tonight in the evening, staying half an hour after the event. I think you're already motivated and you know that you have to figure this thing out.
Yeah, thanks, Vlad, for commenting on that. And I also want to thank all of you for spending this extra time. So obviously, next time we will schedule a bit longer. But what I always say is, if there is one important thing, one important element that you take out of this, which you apply, this could potentially be life-changing. So I hope we gave you some valuable inspiration today. I hope you also took part in this conditioning exercise. We will share, again, when you comment the LinkedIn post, we will share the recording with you, and also some other resources, for example, and these ones, they are also about prompt engineering, a great one from Entropic, one about vibe coding here from YC, and of course, the last masterclass of Vlad and myself. One more call out if you want to invite Vlad or myself to speak in your organization. Vlad, I know you're also offering workshops. I do mindset workshops as well. Then please reach out to us. You have our details. So all the best and happy building. But first, I want to open the round maybe for 2 or 3 questions. I know there were a lot of questions in the chat. We will look at these later on. Now, if you want to ask a question, please unmute yourself, get on camera. You can also raise your hand. So we are open for questions now. Vlad, is there anything you would like to share? One more insight you want to share?
Yeah, just try it out. And as Tim mentioned already, if you have any struggles or like questions, go check our other session on YouTube, where we have hands-on tips and tricks. And of course, anytime reach out on LinkedIn, and we're gonna try to support you on your journey.
So I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Great. So the last weeks I made my first tests with Cursor and let it generate some applications. And what I found, what one of the biggest problems was that Cursor is doing a lot of things which I don't ask it to do. Changes stuffs. Yeah, I tell him, please change the database layer, and the GUI graphic design gets completely lost. So do you have some ideas on that?
So essentially, yeah, there are actually a lot of memes on that topic where we had like classic development where you have you're first building like a tire for a car, and then you're building an axle, and then you have half on a car, and then you have the car, and then agile is like you always have something that works. Like you have like bicycle or whatever, and then it's the car. And then with AI, it's like you want the car, but you get a spaceship. So it's that the agent is always doing a lot of stuff, and then you have to like reduce. So actually, it's a really simple thing. If just ask it to be for brevity. So like give me a minimal solution. Like if you just put this in your context, it's going to improve the output already. But if we go again to the agentic steering and the approach with product requirement documentation and specification, you can also, like, as I mentioned, lock certain aspects of your code base essentially. Say, okay, I don't want to change of the API because I know that what I'm asking you to do, it's possible without changing the API. So locking certain things and saying in the context, for example, in the agentic steering, the OpenAPI specification between my front end and back end, or the data model, shouldn't be modified unless explicitly required to, or part of the current product requirement documentation or specification that I'm providing. So like with agentic steering, you can nudge it, but even just saying like I want a minimal solution, and providing what it has to be changed in terms of functional layer description or functional level description of what has to be changed should already improve. And I know that cursor is being widely used and so on, but I strongly recommend like to try Claude Code. I don't have any affiliation with Anthropic or anything, but I'm so impressed by the results that I'm getting that I'm as of today, I'm not moving to anything else.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, since we are speaking about tech stack, so I'm also very passionate about using Cloud Code and especially using multiple task agents to solve something than many tasks agents in parallel. I also want to encourage you to try out a Kiro. It's a tool which is very good at spec and also with very clear steering, hooks, and a very clear way to show the documentation. So Kiro. I also want to encourage you, if so far you've only been building software, try some full stack, including cloud. So for example, open an AWS account. There are even that you can open a free account if you don't have one. And then via the AWS CLI, just build some agents. You can use, for example, Amazon Bedrock Agent Core. There you have flexibility about the agent framework you use. You can use Strands agents framework. You can use LangChain. You can use OpenAI Agent SDK. You can use any model. And then you have agent observability, agent memory, and different features included. And whatever you want to build, maybe you want to have some transcription feature or want to build a real-time voice agent. If you can access the entire stack of cloud computing, then you can innovate a lot. And once you've done this a couple of times, maybe also for your other projects, you get really good ideas. So try out combining the whole stack. So I see that, Ghazala, you have a question as well.
Yeah, thank you for today's session. It was really insightful. I had a question, like when using vibe coding for something that's from scratch, you can like provide all the requirements and, like you said, instructions. But what about when we have like a monolith application or a large application, and there is like already some structure that is like legacy code has, and in that case, how would we use vibe coding to like enhance it or modernize it?
Yeah. So essentially, when we're talking about brownfield project where we have existing stuff, there are different strategies. So one of them, it depends on the size of the project. So if we're talking something on the scale of 100 or a couple of hundred of thousand lines of code, because like I think that right now that's the measure that we are most commonly using. And the point here is how big the context window of the agent is. And most of them have like 200,000 tokens. There are a couple of them with over 1 million tokens and so on. But essentially, we always want to have is to use as small as context as possible to fill this context window, because then we get better output. As soon as we go like over 50%, there is a degradation of the quality of the output. So we have to be mindful of that. And then if we are talking about a project that's a couple of hundred of lines of code, maybe up to 200,000-300,000, I think it's still feasible to directly work and try to use agents, but you have to do a couple of steps before you start extending and changing the existing code. So you have to do like a bit of preparation where ideally you let the agent, so actually Kuro Dev from Amazon, from AWS, does really good job at that, where the first thing that the IDE with the agent will do would examine your project and create some steering automatically. So that's it. But the same thing you can ask Cloud Code to do the same, like check the project, create some technical steering documentation for that. There are well-known architecture templates like Arc42, where you can ask it, generate an architecture populate. And here I'm gonna be also like minimal, like brevity, minimal. Those are keywords in the context, like generate a minimal technical documentation, follow the Arc42 architectural template, a prompt, something like that. Or you can meta prompt, you can put this sentence to the agent and say, give me a proper detailed prompt for an agent that will do that task, and you're going to get a bit of extended prompt, and then you're going to give this to the agent. But essentially the agent can go around your project and provide you quite a lot of information already. There is the biggest point here is what tech stack you have. So still the agents are working best with stuff like TypeScript, JavaScript, React, Java. So the more common and the more open source the tech stack is, it means the more data was used to train the model that is behind the agent. So essentially, if you have some very weird tech stack that it's not that well known and used, especially in the open source communities, you're gonna have some degradation. But even there, we've seen good results with stuff like COBOL and so on. So there's like always you can provide, if it's a very specific language that you don't have out of the box good results, then you have to work a bit more and provide steering and explanation. That's my tech stack, and this is the concept behind this tech stack, provide some examples and so on, so that the agent can better approach the task. And then if we go to like a huge amount of like millions of lines of code, big project, so there you have a bit more steps that we're gonna add. So this, what I've said so far, is valid still, but from the big monolith we have to move to modulets. And actually there is a thing within the monolith. There is the biggest point here is what tech stack you have. So still the agents are working best with stuff like TypeScript, JavaScript, React, Java. So the more common and the more open source the tech stack is, it means the more data was used to train the model that is behind the agent. So essentially, if you have some very weird tech stack that it's not that well known and used, especially in the open source communities, you're gonna have some degradation. But even there, we've seen good results with stuff like COBOL and so on. So there's like always you can provide, if it's a very specific language that you don't have out of the box good results, then you have to work a bit more and provide steering and explanation. That's my tech stack, and this is the concept behind this tech stack, provide some examples and so on, so that the agent can better approach the task. And then if we go to like a huge amount of like millions of lines of code, big project, so there you have a bit more steps that we're gonna add. So this, what I've said so far, is valid still, but from the big monolith we have to move to modulets. And actually there is a thing within the monolith. Ideally, if like some experienced technical people working on that, it's going to be divided in, it's a monolith at runtime, but it's divided in packages or some modules or there is a separation in there. So you can clearly, and actually you can automate that as well. You can give to the agent each separate entity as black box and say, summarize this thing, and then add a markdown file describing this thing with APIs and so on, or how do you interact with this module or package, and do for all of them. And then within the global scope, you instruct the agent to load only the synthesized information. And then it's essentially going to do something like binary search and find everything relevant that it needs to accomplish your task. So that's a strategy that you might explore. But the thing is, you have to really spend the time on the preparation in order to make it successful.
When it comes to tech stack, we are using C# and .NET. So how would you say the model is trained for those languages?
I mean, it's not going to be on the level of if it was TypeScript and Java, but it still should be okay.
Okay. And then my last question is like, as you said, there is like, of course, the application is divided into separate modules. So how would, in general, we like go on training the model for each module so that it can give like an overall architectural suggestion for the application?
So essentially, you're going to divide and conquer, so as I mentioned. So you're going to go each small black box. You're going to say, you consider now just this thing is black box. Give me the minimal architectural template of Arc42 for this module. And then go around, do all of them, and then say, okay, now consider only the documentation that was generated and do a complete project overview. Would be an approach that I would imagine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Something that comes to my mind, just adding to that, and maybe Vlad, you already were saying this. So definitely using a spec mode or planning mode. But if it's larger projects, let it document it. So the plan that you make, please document it. So when it runs into the context window, it still has it there. And then it can, I don't know, have 20 context windows and create a larger document, which encompasses all the information. And then go section by section using a good steering. And after one section is done, you can also let it reflect, take the learnings, improve the steering. All right. One last question. Otherwise, if there are no more questions, then we wish you a beautiful evening, beautiful day, and hopefully hear from you soon and see you in the next session. Bye. Thanks a lot, Vlad, as well.
Thank you all for joining.